All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another Nintendudez podcast. I am Nick.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Travis.
And we're going to be tackling another kind of interesting topic in my mind, and I'm going to be looking at what makes a game successful. And there's going to be a little bit of a background as I start this because it's going to sound really nerdy, and I totally expect Mike to give me crap for this. I watched a YouTube video that was a 15-minute history on the on the history of Tetris. So get it out of your system. Get it out of your system. It was actually really interesting and really well done. But it got me thinking, like, Tetris was probably one of the best-selling games of all time. And it really has, like, again, it had, like, a cult following for the longest time as well. And it's such a simple concept. And I was like, this is a successful game. And then you look at something like Battlefront 2, as much as we like to make jokes about it, I don't consider that game a success in any means. Maybe EA considers it a success by making money, but I think that the term, like, a game being successful can mean different things, and that's what we want to talk about today, is what makes a game successful. So my opening background that I want to talk about is Tetris, and I also want to talk about Minecraft here. Mm-hmm. So both of these games had an addicting concept, and they're some of the best-selling games of all time, but I don't really want to focus on that yet. And one of the biggest things that I think was so great about Minecraft, and so great about Tetris as well, is all ages can play. Like, it was for almost every platform. They developed it for a lot of different ways. Almost everybody can play, and there's almost like a psychological satisfaction with Tetris. Like, clearing the lines just feels good to do. And even people who weren't gamers played this game.
Did you just say that doing lines makes you feel good?
Yes, but in a video game, Travis. We're not talking about the drug.
Yeah,
but
Nick is speaking code here.
But anyway, and I don't really know with Minecraft, never got a ton into that, but I mean, what makes a game successful, I think, goes deeper than just what's on the surface of what sells well. So what are your thoughts about that so far?
I mean, I see what you're saying too, because, like, when I look at something like Minecraft and stuff, like, well, for me, I'll just kind of say this personally, for a game to be successful, I think it has to have that sort of open world creative feel to it. Because I've noticed, as weird as this sounds, I feel like games that have stories immediately won't put them on that level. I feel like there's two different levels of success that you have to look at. Because games like Minecraft and stuff are sort of on another level. As far as, like, Minecraft came out how long ago? And it's still, like, one of the most played games out there. And Grand Theft Auto 5 is the same way. Grand Theft Auto 5 is still the top 10, in like, the top 10 selling games of the month. And that game came out, like, 4 years ago. And it's still selling like crazy. So, but to be a game like that, I feel like you almost have to throw story to the side. Not that GTA 5 had a bad story, but you have to have something in it that sort of never ends. And that's exactly what Minecraft is. Like you mentioned, that's kind of what Tetris is like, where Tetris doesn't have a story. It's just a game that's addictive, and you get into it. Grand Theft Auto 5's online multiplayer is just run around, screw around in the city, and kill people for fun. And it doesn't get old, and it sort of goes on forever. And so stuff like that, I think, is what makes a game really successful. I think on the level below that, as far as, like, story games, I think there's different things that you can look at in there as well, like a story that captivates, like Last of Us or Final Fantasy VII. But I think in today's day and age, the most important thing is, like, fun, online, never-ending multiplayer.
Oh, don't worry, I have some points about that later. So before we get to that, Travis, do you want to put in your 2 cents?
I mean, I would definitely agree with Mike in that it has to be addicting, and then, like, I can play, the Nintendo Land for hours and hours and hours on end and not actually get bored, because just trolling you with Mario is one of the greatest things ever. So
I like Nintendo Land. I do like Nintendo Land.
Yeah, exactly. It's so fun. And then, like what Mike was saying with Minecraft, I can give two shits about actually building my own fortress. Like, I built it in a day, but then the thing that always made me go back is destroying everybody else's fortresses, because there's always that little satisfaction you get when you know that someone spent a lot of time and effort making this thing perfect, and you just did one little tiny thing, and all of a sudden everything is ruined. And
remind me never to play Minecraft with you, Travis.
You sound like a horrible player.
Well, because I've told you guys about the time that I logged in on my friend Robbie's account, and I went to the middle of their city hall where they had this giant lava lamp. I literally just broke the glass off the bottom of it, so then it was just an endless pool of lava kept oozing out, and it ended up burning down the entire village.
See,
and then I just logged off.
Asshole.
I just logged off, pretended I didn't even do anything.
That's
and then
hilarious.
Everyone woke up and, like, logged on the next day, and it was like, What happened?
See, this is why I wish we recorded like a year ago, because I had something like that with Matt where like me and Matt built our own houses and like connected them and everything.
Oh my
and then
God,
randomly
that was so
I
funny.
decided to put lava on his house and burn his whole house down. And I remember him freaking out, and I'm like, see, that's the stuff we need on video.
Definitely.
the
Yeah,
memories.
but I mean, okay, so that's one of the great things about Minecraft. You can play it in so many different ways, and so I'm with you there. Like, it has that customization or like that custom feel that you kind of need for that. So now I want to bring in a couple of different things. So obviously we can determine, like a lot of AAA games do, especially ones that are publicly traded and actually have stock values. Games like or companies like EA, businesses can determine success as well just by the money that the game makes, which I think you can measure success off of that, but I don't think it's really what you really want to measure the success by. Because here's the point that I'm going to make, because yeah, I don't like EA. I don't like their DLC and loot boxes, but you know, it's not really for me. If they're making money off it, they're going to keep doing it.
Right.
But what I want to talk about is the way that I think success is more determined is on a subjective basis based on the game's developer. So what I was thinking is that certain games, like Mike loves Hellblade, and indie games that want you to get a certain response from the player, and I think that Hellblade is like that, I think their level of success is a lot different than the other ones. Yeah, they might make money out of it, but if they can get the player to think differently, or maybe look at a situation differently, maybe kind of give them a preview or a window look into what it's like to be a different kind of person, I think that's a different measure of success, because what I created got this response out of you, and so it did exactly what I wanted to.
Aww.
I would call that successful. And so another way I was going to say is that, again, I think another game to talk about is like Life is Strange, where it might give you that change of mindset. And if the developer wants you to have that change of mindset, I think that's another way for it to be successful. And lastly, the one that I think is the biggest one is replayability. So Mike, you said customization, but I'm going to say replayability, because we're going to bring in Pokemon now. Because Pokemon like Red, Blue, and Yellow, those games you could play over and over and over again. And again, there's people who I know who only play Pokemon games, but because there's so many people to capture, or Pokemon to capture, you can play it over and over, and not people. You can play it over and over.
I just want to play a Pokemon game where
again.
you capture the trainers.
That would be amazing.
That would be-
There's probably a fan-made game of that if you really want to
Detective
search it out.
Pikachu
But
number
Pokemon.
2.
Yeah.
He's capturing
So I'm
humans.
talking about. So I'm gonna say like Undertale and Telltale games and whatnot that are like that might have multiple endings that want to get you replaying it. Games like that only can have one way to play it, and like you go through the story and not a lot of customization options, and you're done and you don't want to pick it up again. If they get the game out of you, it might be a success. But for it to have that cult following, I think it has to have some kind of aspect of replayability. Right. I think replayability is important when determining success. That's just my personal opinion. And I'm talking for a long time now. I'll get to that more in some of the later things I say. So Mike and Travis, thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I want to say what you said at first was really, really adorable, Nick.
What?
That was super cute, what you said about like Life is Strange and Hellblade. But it's true that like it doesn't just have to be like the money you make, because I've played so many games that have like, after I beat it, I'm just sitting there like, dude, that was like a mindset changing experience. And that's exactly what Life is Strange was like for me, both of the games, because they touch on such sensitive topics. Things like abuse, suicidal thoughts. Persona 5 was one that sort of, even though that's kind of a humorous game, touched on a lot of those topics for me too. That forced you to look at these things from a different perspective, and it sort of gives you a new look on things. So, you know, as cheesy as it may sound, I think being able to say, yeah, you know what, this game may not have sold as well as it could have, or like something like Minecraft, but it had an impact on my life. But I really feel like there's a lot of games out there that are like that. And I see what you're saying about replayability. I would almost argue, though, for Pokemon, it's not necessarily the replayability, especially with the later ones. It's more just the vast array of stuff there is to do. Because in Pokemon, like, it's a game that you can replay over and over, and like getting to the Elite Four and stuff is fun. But like you said, how many hours did you put into, what was it, X or Y or White or something? You said you put in like a few hundred hours.
It was more than a couple hundred.
Right. And I think it's because of the online battles of the new ones, but it's also because you have this quest to catch every single Pokemon. And especially in the later games, you want to explore all the different islands and find all the legendary Pokemon, and stuff like that alone goes far beyond the story. And so all of a sudden, a game that you can beat rather quickly, I mean, Pokemon's not all that long. You don't have to grind all that much just to beat like the Elite Four and stuff. I mean, in the older games you kind of do. Newer ones not as much. But there's just so much other stuff you can do that it sort of just goes on forever, it feels like. And so I feel like that kind of ties back into that it just has this expansive world that sort of feels like it never ends, that you can just get totally invested into. And I think,
Yeah.
again, that's why Pokemon has been a franchise that survived for so long.
Yeah, and I think there is a lot of truth to what you said, because my Pokemon Red version, I mean, I still have it. And my Red version, and I'm hoping that the battery hasn't died, I really do, because I'm only missing the Pokemon that are exclusive to Blue before completing the Pokedex. So I did take on the quest of trying to catch them all, as they say. So yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to what you say.
Right. And I think it's almost like a mix of all these things. You know, you talked about replayability, and I think that like is specifically for like story games, obviously, because Minecraft has no replayability because there's nothing to replay. But like, you know, for story games, I do feel like if you have good replayability, something that can drive people back into it. Because like I love Final Fantasy games, but not a lot of them have that replayability for me because they're so long. Final Fantasy VII does. I think that game is a story that I can re-experience over and over because it doesn't feel tedious at all. It's such a straightforward boom, boom, boom game that game has a lot of replayability, but most story games don't have that as much. So games that do, I think, are really big.
Yeah. What do you think, Travis?
So what I was going to say with Pokemon, I have replayed Red version God knows how many times. But with that, I don't think I've ever beaten the Elite Four with a different set of 6 Pokemon, because I always just fall in love with them, and, you know, I might give myself a, like, hey, I'm just going to level up this person a lot and see if I can beat them all with that, but that's about as different as I get because they're my squad. But then I'm also thinking with like replayability for a game such as like Danganronpa, I don't know if I'll ever truly actually like replay the first one or not, just because I got the juicy story, but like I definitely got the, you know, great story behind it the first time I played it. So like maybe way down the line where I'm like, I can't quite remember how this went down, but for replayability wise, I'm like, maybe it has it, because I definitely know I'm not too interested in the school version where I'm just, you know, panty collecting, unless we make that a race, in which case it's gonna be great. But yeah, but like I see what you guys are saying with there's different ways of like seeing success, and I guess Danganronpa gets that success because it did get you to like be like, what would I be doing in this situation? Would I turn on my friends? Would I try and still remain calm? Would I be the murdered person because I'm a bitch? You know, things like that. Because I feel like that's where Danganronpa truly wanted me to go to.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I got you. Well, okay, so I'm going to bring in some of the my opinion just on this whole topic. I mean, I know I've been dropping a couple things here, but one of the things that I really want to talk about is when I was brainstorming this topic. And I'm just gonna look at something really quick. So, in my mind, when we talk about a successful game, the term success can mean different things to different people, obviously. So, in my mind, I think success is determined by the game developer and what they're trying to accomplish. So, like in my mind, Tetris and Minecraft, if they didn't have I think those are probably in my mind, those are some of the most successful games out there. And I don't think that's going to change my mindset unless somebody gives me a really, really successful game to them and can make me think like, okay, I'll have to rethink that. But right now, those are the two that I thought were, if I'm going to say successful games, those have been around for a long time, and they have like no intention of going away. Maybe like Pac-Man or something. I don't know. But
right.
So what I think is necessary for a game to be successful, as I was brainstorming this topic, I think you need to have a good concept and good execution. You can have a good concept like Star Fox Zero, but without a good execution, in my mind, I don't think it's going to work out. You also need accessibility, because there's going to have to be a lot of people playing this game. Tetris was on so many different computers, console, Game Boy, so many different ways. Minecraft, PC, Xbox, Switch, like it was on so many different places. If you want to have a successful game that goes everywhere, you got to have a lot of different ways to play. So I think that's one of the big things too. And you need to have a dedicated player base. If you don't have a dedicated player base and people that keep playing your game, I don't think it's going to be as successful. But there's something nice about that simplistic style of games. Like my dad, one of the only games that he plays that he actually borrowed me and my sister's Game Boy for was Pokemon Pinball. And he loved that game. He didn't put it down for, I swear, there's like one time I saw him on there for like 2 hours. A person who does not play video games at all, and he just loved this game and tried to get as many evolutions as possible, which blew my mind. But yeah, those are the things that are necessary to actually like keep games there. But here's the things that are going to be controversial, and I want to hear your thoughts on this for sure. These are things that I think that aren't necessary, but they can be helpful. And I don't think that music is necessary to make a game successful, or sound effects. People mute the game all the time when they're playing, and they listen to their other music. Music, as much as I love it and as much as it enhances the experience for me, I don't think it's needed to have a successful game. And at the same time, I don't think you need competitive modes. I think they're fun to do, and I think that's one of the things that keeps me playing. But not all games have a competitive mode, and you don't really need it to be successful. That's what I think. So, what do you guys think?
I think the first statement you said I feel like is more controversial. The second one I can see because like I said, especially older games didn't really have any competitive modes, that were like single player campaign stuff. So that one I understand. As far as the music goes, I feel like it depends. If I'm playing Call of Duty Online, I probably have it muted or I don't care about the music. So for games like that or Minecraft, I see it. But I do wonder, and in my head, if a game like Legend of Zelda, or especially, and maybe I'm just biased because I love Final Fantasy, I always talk about it.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy would be dirt if it wasn't for the soundtrack. Like, I think of all the scenes or the towns you go into, the mood is set more, I think, by the music you hear than the graphics you see. You already know what you're getting into just based on what the sound is. So every little thing like that, I think, completely changes the dynamic of those games. And I think it's things that are almost subconscious. Like you don't even realize that what the emotion you're feeling is more from the music. Like you think about Aerith's theme from Final Fantasy VII or Yuna's theme from Final Fantasy X or any of those songs. The reason they touch you so much, like those scenes, is because of the music that's playing. It sort of invokes this emotion. And it's the way that the music is used. I almost wish we did a whole podcast on just music because it's one of my favorite things to talk about in games. Because then you hear that song. Yeah, and I want to. Because then like those songs will replay later on in the game in moments that are different, but it like re-invokes that emotion in you. And so I think like music is such a powerful tool that I see your point. You don't need music to be successful. But I think it, to me, especially in a single player story, it seems like it would be almost impossible to not have a good soundtrack and still have like a game that can capture you. Now, like I said, in online multiplayer games, now I think you have more of an argument because no one cares at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I just think that it's more helpful, if anything. Like, it can do a lot of help. Like, again, getting that reaction out of you for sure. But, again, there are players out there, like, I'm not meaning to, like, throw shade at him, but I mean players like Eric. He does not care about cutscenes. He does not care about the dialogue. He doesn't care about the voice acting, really. He just wants to play the game. And those are players out there. And
Nick,
those players, what?
I will throw shade at any player that dares play a Final Fantasy game with the TV muted. Those people are assholes.
Mike,
you can throw shade, you can throw shade at them all you want to, but I'm just wanting to say that those players are out there, and it's not what my kind of style is. So as much as it's helpful, I don't find it completely necessary because people out there's so many different kinds of ways to play a game, and that's why I say for a game to be a success, it doesn't have to have that. I think it helps a lot, but it doesn't have to be there. When did you ever say Eric? When did you say Eric ever loved a game because of its music? When did you say he loves it because of its cutscenes? He never did. Did he actually say about Harvest Moon?
I don't know. He likes Harvest Moon.
Well, I know he does like Harvest Moon, but
no, because he said that the music soothed him.
Okay, well that was the one. I didn't know about that. Well, either way,
so good. Oh, control.
Nice job, Travis. But either way, like, but that's what I'm saying with Eric. Is just like there's people out there who all that stuff is just fluff to them. They're only focused on gameplay, and that's not wrong. But I'm just saying that there's people who play the game that way. Yeah. So music is helpful.
I'm also thinking of the flip side of like the situation where it's people who are playing with the sound on and they shouldn't, such as I'm just gonna name a random example that comes out of my head. Say like one of your roommates named Matt playing Clash of Clans while taking a 20-minute shit in the morning. Out of nowhere, though. Out of nowhere.
You can hear it through the door.
Yeah, that music soundtrack makes me want to go insane.
Yeah, so it's like it's things like that because I'm not gonna say Clash of Clans wasn't a successful app because it was the #1 downloaded thing for God knows how long.
Yeah.
So it was successful. Its music and also sound effects are awful. Just I think that is probably like if I just heard like one grunt out of any of those characters, it would automatically trigger me into like an aneurysm.
Another hole's gonna be in the wall.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, okay. I guess that's what I wanted to. That's one of the things that I wanted to focus on, if anything. So I know it's a little controversial, but I mean, I think we, at least from what I've seen, is we talked about a lot about what makes that game successful. And to me, again, you need the player base. You need the player base. You need the good execution of the concept, and you really need to go for what the developer wanted. If the developer just wanted you to have fun, and you're having fun, then that's it. That could be a success to that game developer. It might not be a success in other people's minds, but in my mind, that's a success. So if we're talking something like Minecraft, if they want you to build a house and just play it, that's fine. You can have low expectations like that and it'll be successful as much as you want. But if you try to set out big goals, then it's going to be harder to meet those expectations. And if you have to do so, I think the necessaries are the player base, I had these written down, the player base, the good execution, and the accessibility. That's what I think needs to be there.
Right. I will say, too, sort of to end this on, because I feel like this might lead into our next podcast a little bit.
Yep.
Is how do we define success? Because I get what you're saying, but a lot of games that have these things end up just being like fads. Like Flappy Bird is an example I like to think of, as weird as that is to bring up. It was super
Flappy Bird
addictive.
I can talk a long time on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of like backseat stuff that happened with Flappy Bird.
Right. And I mean, that not that the game was designed well at all, but it's super addictive. That was super successful, but it died out in like at most like 2 weeks. And there's a lot of games
it literally
like that.
got taken off of the App Store because kids were getting too frustrated about being bad at it.
Right. And you have like situations like that, and it almost makes me think like, when I look at stuff like that, how do we separate those categories? Because there's tons of games that are coming out now that are like absolutely not designed this way, that ends up becoming like the best-selling game. And it's like, it feels like in this world there's so much good because of the indie games, but I feel like there's so much bad because these fad games end up becoming the successful games, and it's hard to deal with that.
Well, in that way, I'm not measuring success on if they wanted to make a top-selling game, and that's a success for them as much as it might pain me to say, because they achieved their goal. Right. But if they're I guess in that mind it's kind of hard to determine it. In my mind, it's very determined by the developer if it's a success or not. If they, as much as I hate to bring it up again, if they said they wanted to have a couple of people have fun play Sonic Riders, I would say that it's a success because I had fun playing Sonic Riders.
Okay.
But I think it's very subjective, because again, I guess that's a very simplified version of it, but I think it goes back more to what is the developer trying to get out of you. Like a game like Hellblade gives you a change of thought, or gives you a different perspective. Right. That's what I think is a little bit different. But if they're just trying to make a game to piss you off, I'm not so sure that's just a success.
Right.
But
yeah, because I think the question then is, especially in the topical game, is a game like PUBG successful? That's like a to-be continued question.
Basically. So I guess we'll end it on that cliffhanger then, which we have never done on a podcast.
Right.
So, whatever you guys want to say, write them in the comment section below. Tell us what you think about how to measure a game's success. And at the same time, we want to hear your thoughts if you want to hear any other podcast. But not the next one, though. The next one we already have something for.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Adios.